Good morning, guys. I hope you had a great holiday weekend with your friends and your family. In our readings this past week in Ironworks, we came across a passage in Hebrews 13 that just really spoke to me, and I want to take just a couple of minutes and share that with you guys today. So let's jump on over to Hebrews 13:5, and here's what it says. It says, "Keep your life free from the love of money, and be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So we can confidently say that the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me?" In this passage, the author of Hebrews is focusing on our contentment. And that concept is one of the enemy's biggest battlegrounds in my life. I think I can actually see that struggle go way back in my early years. When I was young, my great-grandmother, she would take me up to the local IGA market in Wampee, South Carolina. And yes, it was just as tiny and country as it sounds when I said that. The store was tiny, but as a kid, man, it had the best toy section I'd ever seen in my life. So my great-grandmother would drive me up there when she went to get her groceries each week, and she would let me basically pick out a toy that I wanted. And they were all so cheap, I didn't have any kind of limit. I could pick whatever I wanted on the shelf, and man, that was a treat for a kid my age. As it continued week after week, I started noticing there were other toys there too that I would love to have. And soon, I would even start talking about what I wanted next week before we were even out of the store with that week's toy. And she thought it was cute, but that's because she was my great-grandmother. Looking back, though, I looked a lot more like a selfish kid than I thought I did then, right? Instead of being grateful for what I had, man, I was already planning to the next thing. That behavior continued through my life. I've always had problems being content and was always looking to the next thing, right? Whether it was surfboards or guitars or whatever it was I was into that season of life, I was always looking and researching the next thing. And man, that is a dangerous mindset. And the enemy knows that weakness in my life. And thankfully, it was brought to my attention as well by a good friend later. And I've memorized some scriptures now to deal with that temptation when it comes. So the passage that we read in Hebrews warns us to avoid the love of money, but the author really focuses in on an attitude of discontentment. And, as I studied this passage in my quiet time this past week, one of my commentaries actually mentioned that some who are receiving this letter were actually facing financial hardships, and they were renouncing their new faith for financial stability. Instead of suffering for Jesus, they sold out for comfort. During this pandemic, man, there are so many people that are just facing financial ruin. We've seen it online, we've seen it in the news, and it seems to be an insurmountable obstacle. But with God, man, all things are possible. We need to try and be content with what we have instead of being upset that we don't have what we were planning on having at this point. Instead of looking at someone else's success or your neighbor's brand new car or whatever catches your eye in this world, this passage tells us that we can be content in any situation. And the source of that contentment is actually found at the end of verse 5, the presence of Jesus in our lives. We might not have the most reliable car, or we might not have the kind of house that we want, or we might actually have less in savings than we thought we would at this point in time, but we cannot let that attitude of discontentment steal away the joy that we have today. Instead of focusing on what we don't have, guys, let's be thankful for what we do have. This passage is one of those verses that actually I have memorized to do battle with our enemy when he throws something back in front of me to make me forget how richly God has already blessed me. I want to encourage you guys to internalize this short passage as well. And then when you feel like your attention's being drawn away to what you don't have, man, claim this verse. Guys, we have a hope and a future that is planned out by the creator of this world, and it's unique for each and every one of us. Don't let stuff steal away the contentment in your life. Guys, have a great day. Enjoy the blessings that you have today, and we'll see you real soon.